Hey gang. All right, it's another new all-time high day. Yeah, yesterday was the day off for Juneteenth. Today, Rocco and I are looking for stuff to go long and stuff to go short. He had shots today. He's pretty tired today, Rocco. You can relax. I will ask him for short and long recommendations. Let's see as we're on a swivel here. All right, so markets topped early. You see, we put on those new all-time highs at 550 SPY. That was pre-market, and then we gave it away. We started to cascade lower throughout the day. We've been calling for about a 2% pullback, specifically in the tech areas. You actually did get a 75 bip move lower in the Qs. And then we'll look at the semiconductors. They did move lower, mostly behind NVIDIA down 4%, but pretty much all the semis were down 2% or more. Let me share our screen and we'll see what's going on here. Sharing some knowledge, sharing some market moves about what actually happened today. Real data, not anything that doesn't matter. Okay, we're not going to talk about Trump media nonsense stock. Who cares? Who gives a crap? All right. So real moves here. What happened today? China, semiconductors, and tech drag markets lower, while energy and silver shine. We'll take a look at that, see if there's any potential setups. We were looking at those areas before, silver and energy specifically. And new all-time highs for the S&P 500, semiconductors, and technology before reversing and all closing negative on the day. So, excuse me. So big up moves today. Energy was up 1.7. We'll take a look. Silver up nearly 4% today alone. Volatility did spike a bit, up 4%. Copper miners up 3%, and the down moves. China, can't say they didn't not have a leg into this. China was down 2% today, so that was definitely contributed to kind of the global pullback to an extent. Semiconductors down nearly 3%. Of course, that's coming from an all-time high. Like I said, this is super extended, and we'll actually look at how. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but we were actually calling for a pullback of a specific level. I think it got pretty much right there on SMH, and a little bit more to go. Tech as a whole pulled back 1.5%. That specific ETF, the IY Dubs, hit a 52-week high. And nat gas continuing lower. Nat gas is the best trade in the market overall, short or long. It's the best short trade of the week. Also, second is ARCG. I'm happy to yours truly is looking at been in that position, and it's appreciating nicely. Long July put spreads, and then oil, believe it or not, is the third best trade in the market. Actually, the best long overall. It's actually a tie in terms of percentage return. It's either oil helped you hedge in the past week or long VXX volatility. So let's take a look at these charts and let's see what's going on. See if there's any setups. Okay, so let me share screen. Let's go first on the S&P. I'll show you an intraday chart and then where we see things going from her. All right. Boopity bop. So here we are. This is what I was talking about. Intraday, 7 a.m. That was the high. Basically, I'm rounding it. It was 551 in thinly traded pre-market trading, and then here was the opening bell at 549, and then we started trading lower. VWAP settled at 547.5, right in the middle, and you can see where we closed 547. So on the weaker side, as I've been saying, I had June 18th for a basically an end to this bullish regime short term. I typically mark things in two to three week stretches. And my goal, my target for the S&P all along for SPY have been 545. We are above that here, as you can see. So where do we go from here? Over 2 to 3 weeks, I really do believe we will be headed towards 535 to 532. Nothing crazy. I'm pointing out 21 EMAs or exponential moving averages for that. Just to pull back, we are specifically and quite literally overbought at 73. We were calling for this to come down, and voila, you actually did get a pretty, it's a pretty, I don't want to call it a bearish engulfing candle, even though it did swallow up yesterday's bar. But this tells me, especially closing on the lows, even though not a huge red bar lower, tells me that we do want to revisit a little bit of, I don't want to say bearishness, but you should experience some kind of a pullback to mean reversion to right around these meaningful levels. Legit 535. 532. I would expect a $12 pullback pretty quickly. Not pretty quickly, but over the next 2 weeks. And I do believe today was a start. Not to say that it can't, rip tomorrow and go and, fits and starts, but I would now presume and the summers are very bullish, especially June and July. Money just flows into the market. And I'm actually looking at the Chaikin money flow. And there are more people buying this market, not today, but recently in the past 1 to 2 weeks, they're buying this on the close. And that's typically, heavy, big institutional size orders. So that's good for, legs going into the, a month, 2 months, a quarter. But for right now, the very short term, next 2 weeks or so, a bit of a pullback to 535. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, all right, so let's look at what ripped today. These are not a bunch, but they were kind of correlated. We'll see XLE, a multiple standard deviation move. Today, they really bought the energy stocks. You can see that oil isn't on this list. Oil is actually the best long over the past week. And we'll look at that chart later. But so let's see. Just a minor blip here. I see like 3 days under the 200-day moving average. It really hasn't done that since February. So pretty interesting weakness. You do have lower highs here. I don't like seeing this. This does look like something that peaked April 12th. All that being said, I think we might have even talked about this in the video 2 days ago or something, but I see this still in accumulation mode, although I don't think it has a ton of velocity, and this looks like it wants to go to 92, where it will be trying to test essentially. That seems a little bit too bullish. I don't see that in this environment, although you could have a rotation to more commodity-led names like this. All that being said, though, I see it wanted to kind of get maybe back to those 2-week highs, not much more than that. But I do expect this support to hold. It's not very convincing because the 200-day moving average is stuck at 88.43. I do think that is going to hold. I don't want to say it's a brick wall, but because I could see this actually getting weak and visiting 87. But yeah, not my favorite area. I think we looked at this earlier. Nice if you're in it today. It actually is trying to reclaim its 50 RSI on a 14-day, something it hasn't really done. It didn't do it today. It's at 47. Hasn't done this since May. So, excuse me, other things I'd rather be with than this. Let's look at SLV. SLV we've been looking at, and we're saying this is ripe for investment. You know, good luck if you want to catch this one. Yeah, I mean, so this was all gravy. Like anything on here with 26, anything under 27, that was a great entry. This has great velocity. The peak is right here, May 20th, so not ancient history, exactly 4 weeks ago, actually, 1 month ago. I do see this being in accumulation mode as well. This could, if today was a start, the 21 EMA is actually downward sloping at 27.15. It got above that. It hurdled above that today. I see this going potentially as high as 29.75, which would be a new 52-week high. This looks like it has some momentum. 29.75 would be $1.75 from here, or about 4%. I think this has some lift. Be careful because this could also get back 2% tomorrow if you play it with options. These are cheap options, the SLV. Just be careful. This one can go back and forth. But I see this being accumulated over the next 2 weeks. Maybe not massively so, but I see this one as not bad, especially if you don't have any hard commodities like that in your port. All right, volatility, VXX. Let's zoom in on this piece of crapola. It's a 6-month chart because it is so bad. Big move today, though, up 3.5%. Well, on a day where SPY was down 25 bips, right? But the Qs were down more, down 75. Let's take a look at this. I like to look at VXX sometimes for punctuation points of where things can go. I see this kind of leading where we say I see the S&P being somewhat a slightly bearish regime for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So this should be being accumulated, right? Because it's inversely correlated. So I'm a little bit slow today. Went out for yesterday, Juneteenth dinner and drinks and stuff. So I'm a little behind today. This tops will go to 1230, and you need kind of like a vol expansion to get that. 1230 from here is, what is that, 80 cents? Pretty big move, like 7%. And I think that would be like the panic in the market if you got to that 1230 level, which is here, as I said, above that blue band because you need kind of vol expansion. 1230 would also be something that we haven't seen. It's so sad that we're discussing such cheap levels, but 1230 is essentially where we were in terms of fear gauge, if you're equating it with that, May 9th levels. So, is what I'm looking for VXX. All right. So to summarize, if I were to see VXX around 1220, 1230, 1240, around there in 2 to 3 weeks, then I'd say, you know what, the S&P is probably done putting its down move, and I'm going to reallocate cash. I'm going to probably get longer there. All right. And last thing that was up significantly today out of those 4, so it was energy, silver, vol, and copper miners. We were looking at copper miners before. This is, of course, going to be pretty correlated to silver. Let's take a look and see how much. Did they even peak the same day? This is May 20th peak. Not, looking at the oil chart, I think it was, or XLE, lower highs. This looks better. You still have a rising 200-day moving average. It's trying to reclaim its 50 RSI. This looks like it's in accumulation mode. It actually just got to its 21 EMA today. And this, if it has a bullish profile, which I think it does, there should be more to it. I think this wants to go to 48.49. So this has some more lift. This looks pretty good if you don't have any allocation. The timing, again, kind of be careful. This one can be a little bit strange due to its non-correlation to markets. So obviously it's copper miners, which are equities, but people flee to gold and silver when there's fear and volatility rises. So we see vol rising, albeit slightly, markets declining. Ideally, this would go up like if you need some equity-like exposure. All right, things that dragged us down today. Why did we reverse, right, from all-time highs pre-market and went lower? Some big reasons was China. A-share, haven't actually looked at the China chart in a while, specifically the A-share. So this thing, I mean, the highs were last July. So we're going on 11 months of weakness. You see what happened here, though, and this is why China was starting to get attracted to folks back in end of April. So the 200-day moving average, pretty interesting. This black line slicing it here. Right here, it's very interesting, actually. So April 29th is when it first did it. Immediately, I would say, you know what, I need to see a month of it holding. So that would take you to May 29th. What did it do? It actually held right around to May 30th. And then what happened? It started to give way. So it was kind of just a 1 month trade. But look, it actually didn't even get higher highs. What is the point of this? What I've always been saying, the key theme, trading's easy, y'all. So this is tough. So what do we do here? This is a tough one. The support is around 23.5. Did it get there? It got to like 23.85 today. We're closed. This is a nastier trade. I see it maybe trying to get to 24.5, where you see all these lines converging essentially. I can see that possibly happening, 24.40, maybe a little bit of a mean reversion bump from this over the next week or so, and then giving way a little bit lower. But, excuse me, not a great, excuse me, I'm burping on air. Is that you, Rocco? Rocco, buy or sell this? Rocco, buy or sell? He said sell China. I think he said something a little bit off, a little bit racy. So we'll leave that off. He's a crazy dog. All right, so that was China. Let's see SMH. So SMH, the bell of the ball, of course, new all-time highs. So this is what I want to say. Again, I don't want to like pat myself on the back. But yesterday we were saying this thing has to, not has to because the market do whatever it wants. But yesterday we closed at, let me say, not yesterday. Yesterday was Juneteenth. Market was close. So the 18th, last I did a video, we hit 278 and it closed at 277. I said this has to get very close to visiting 266. It had a plunge today and we closed out. I'm on around 269. The low today actually was 267. So what now? We're going lower. This is you're going to have more days like today, which is going to explain that pullback in the larger S&P. And I would look for that the next 2 weeks. This is way beyond its skis. It shouldn't be there. I know it's super extremely important and attractive sector. It's actually not overbought anymore, so gave that up. We're trading at a 68 RSI, so that's good to see. All that being said, though, I see this going as low as 255. So this needs like another 13 points or 2 times what we lost today. So another 5 to 6% pullback in semis, which typically half correlate with the market. So about 2 to 3% pullback, 3% for Qs, about 2% or so for the S&Ps is where I'm seeing it. And this is going to be the driver. NVIDIA is going to be a part of it. So kind of a scary chart of NVIDIA today from a fellow CMT. It was basically saying in terms of looking at this chart, if we look at the NVIDIA chart, I'm not going to pull it off to get sidetracked. But that could have like almost, I forget the exact percentage, but forget. Let's just pull it up. So NVIDIA, same thing. Obviously post-split, I own it, full disclosure. Yeah, so this thing actually, it's kind of crazy. Not as bad, to be honest. It's kind of funny. It's just crazy overbought, but that's NVIDIA. It did it for since Jan to March. It did it for 2 months, just straight line. Now we're doing the same thing from May 23rd to June 20th overbought. So that's how this thing rolls. So the SMH as a group, in my opinion, is actually going to give back, more. And NVIDIA can regain it on a percentage basis. This looks like it wants to go to 120, potentially 115. And then I think, obviously, so many are going to step in. All right. That was a long way to go about that. Let's get back other here. So SMH down hard today. Now looking at the broader tech. This specific composite was down 1.4%. This is going to be typically, pretty correlated with something that's heavier than in the Qs in NVIDIA, right? So the Qs were down half this today. So I'm looking specifically at this ETF, the US Tech ETF. Let me see. Yep, overbought. This should pull back to about 145. So it's about 6 points or 3 times what you gave back today. So look for your spots in the next 2 weeks. I think you'll get them. And then nat gas, I'm not going to go in on tech because we just did it for a while. Nat gas here is down 4.6% today. That's pretty significant. Let me zoom in because it too is a piece of crapola. So nat gas, let's see. Yeah, this looks good. So obviously it did a lot here. A great trade if you're an astute trader and you identify this. This thing cannot recover its 200-day moving average. The thing, like forward looking, this is still descending. You can see this black line going lower, although it's not picking up massive velocity to the downside. Once you see this start to really stabilize, and then this could potentially get be an area that investors want to get into. Also, seasonality may play a part. I particularly don't know when people scoop up nat gas. It kind of actually trades kind of funny in that it's not, let's buy it before the winters and Europe's going to have, an energy crisis. Those trades kind of sometimes don't work. All that being said, this looks like in sell-off mode. I think this was absolutely as good as it's going to get. This is a heavy roof on it, 2080 on the UNG. I think this might want to go as low. This looks like it wants to go to 17. So obviously $2 would be big. If you're in puts here, this is a lot of volatility that you're paying for. It's a very heavy volatility asset. But this looks like it wants to go lower. And I think this was, that was the highs for sure from a week and a half ago in the short term. And to be honest, those highs of 2160, those go back all the way to January. So that's like the 2024 highs. I don't think it's going to take that out. All right. That was a mouthful. Top 5 gainers the past 5 days. No repeats. Let's go to oil. USO, the best long in the market over the past week. Let's take a look. We saw XLE earlier. Here's the oil chart. Just as a, mark. So crude has actually done well. Obviously, that's why we're talking about it. Crude closed today $81. We're going to look specifically at the USO, slightly discounted from that, as it is a different, marker as what they check. So the 200 days rising very slowly. It's 74.55. I think we looked at this like last week and we said this. It's going to kind of, kind of oscillate around that longer term moving average. Quite frank, around that $75 to $77 range. Now it's kind of outperformed, reaching 79. Now where do we go? I think it's hitting its head on the ceiling. I think this is going to be going to 76 pretty soon. So you're going to get that $3 back. I just think it's going to happen. So that's that. Second biggest gain of the week. It's actually tied with USO for percentage basis, but they're both up 4.6% volatility. So you can use these as kind of hedges to markets at their all-time highs. EWT Taiwan keeps on cranking, man. New 52-week highs today. Oof. See that going not crazy overbought, but it is overbought at a 75. We were looking at this before. This is obviously very correlated with Taiwan Semi, although you can see semis and Taiwan Semi was down today. This pulled a 80 bip gain. Now what? This looks overextended. I think this is going to come down. I don't think crazily, but probably like 51.75. I think it wants to test and have kind of stay there for a bit. So 51.75, that would be a $3 pullback. That'd be pretty significant. So that's something for a short idea. It's kind of be careful though, because this is at 52-week highs and the momentum is higher. It's overbought. But yeah, I think this comes down again. So the theme of the markets that you saw today, potentially through a 3% slip in the SMH, is rising tides lift all boats, sure, but there's got to be stasis to this. Things grows. Trees don't grow to the sky. I tried to reach for 3 analogies in one sentence and they all slipped. Woof woof. You hear that, Rocco? He doesn't even move. Next one, EWT, we did it. After that is silver. We did it. No repeats. This is crazy. Mexico, the 5th best trade of the week from the long side, up 3% in the past week. So we were looking at this. We're saying, we're expecting Mexico to mean revert, expecting to do it here, Finally, it looks like it actually has done it. And as a technical analyst, so the lowest point in terms of price was right here. I'll get really in the nitty gritties. 54.88 was the low 2 times on the 14th and the 17th, but You see this little red marker here. We did not go lower. That is a divergence, a bullish divergence, which means the price is bound to go higher. Essentially, it was kind of a flush, and you don't believe the price because it didn't confirm. You didn't get a confirmation. And what happens if you're an astute trader? As I said, that low was published right there on June 17th. You would have collected that and had the fifth best long of the week in EWW. All that being said, now what? Mexico did recover its lower band. I'm looking at another chart with a different time frame. So now it's going to need some strength to get to 60. I think it wants to try to get to 60. Today was up 2/3%. Looks heavy though. Man, this is a tough one. It's going to have its work cut out for us. I mean, if it cut out for it, to 60 is a $3 move, or what is that, like 4%? It's probably better areas, but this is going to need like 2 weeks. I'm curious what happens because it could just meander and do nothing, stay here, and then ultimately you have a wall at 63.5. I don't think that's going to be done for a while, but we'll see. All right, so those were the gainers: oil, vol, Taiwan, silver, and Mexico. Those are the best trades of the week, past 5 days. Top 5 losers of the past 5 days, no repeats. Nat gas, the biggest loser, down 9% in the past 5 days, or an average of almost 2% a day. Pretty aggressive. And then ARKG, I'm glad to be in this through put spreads. This is my market short essentially. What was I going to say about this one? So let's just look at the chart. It's on a 1 year. Yeah, heavy. This still a down trending 200-day moving average, so it continues to look heavy. Where does this one want to go? So it's interesting. I'm not going to hold it. I don't think it's going to zero. Obviously, this is an ETF fund, and this is very correlated with the biotech ETF. Biotechs were down pretty good as well, but this is on a 5-day look back. So this is down 7%. This was like what's good around 23.40. So another dollar or so, which would be really nice for me. What's the low? I said 23.45, right around here. So the lows would be intact. Definitely not. I'm not anticipating these October lows getting taken out. Just a little bit more of a flush. Just getting closer to around 23.45. Yeah, basically revisiting these April lows, getting right around there. And then it looks like it wants to go to 25. And then like a monster rip. You probably need to see rates go lower, so it's going to have an affiliation with TLT, and then markets rise. So I'll probably look for this to get that, violent rally, but closer to July. And I'm going to do RK. So RK is the third biggest loser of the week, but there's quite a dispersion there. So ARKG is down 7%. RK is down 4%. This is a much heavier Tesla. I do look at both because ARKG is essentially biotechs. RK is the Teslas, the Bitcoins, different things. And we'll look at Bitcoin next, actually, because that's been a loser. So this is RK. I'll keep a 1 year chart. This isn't so bad. It's just not doing much. It looks heavy. I don't really want to buy it. This looks like it's in distribution, not accumulation mode. It had a pretty tag as well of its 200-day moving average, although this looks a little bit more messy. And this 200-day moving average is actually still rising, believe it or not. So it has longer term, 10-month higher momentum, but it's not great. And then you've had really just a vol collapse since May 10th. It just hasn't been doing anything. It's stuck in this 46 to 42 range. And you're like, 10%, that's pretty fast. For ARK, this thing moves, man. I mean, literally from October to December, obviously a lot of stuff happened in the market, but this stock went from 34 to 54 in, those 2 months or whatever we said. Yeah, 2 months. So for those same 2 months to trade in a $4 range, pretty extreme, right? So all that being said, yeah, I think distribution for this, I think it wants to visit 41, about 41.30. I will keep it right here. Yep, right around. Yeah, I think it wants to tag the April lows. I think it wants to do that over the next 2 to 3 weeks. All right. That's ARK. Bitto not doing so swell. It is like stuck at 65K for the actual Bitcoin. Bitcoin today had a nice day, up 1%. Let's take a look at the chart and in terms of larger setups. Bitto, man, I tell you, yeah, it looks good for a buy here just because you're pretty close to its support. I wouldn't expect, well, let me say targets first. I think this wants to jump to its 21 EMA of 26.05. We're at 24.5, so that would be, monster gains. Would be pretty nice gains. But after that, it's going to be a tough road as it gets to, traverse to 27.5. That's just really difficult. So in terms of Bitcoin terms, So 26 from 24.5, that's $1.50, right? So, what is that? $1.50 into that. I don't want to mess around. So 6% move, 6% on Bitcoin. That's like a 4K run. It gets to 69K and then it'll drop. Sounds realistic, right? All right. And then lastly, Germany, a big loser this past week, down 3.33%. Let's see what's going on with this. This has been a kind of not an awful story. This peaked May 15th at 32.75. Now what? Almost similar to Mexico. Not in that had a dramatic fall, but I see it go. It went lower and then up, up, up in small bars here. It looks like it wants to make. I see, it's 31.30 as a big meeting point here. That would be a dollar gain with 3%. You could have an EFA rip or a UFIN, European Financials rip that helps support this. Perhaps it's Deutsche Bank in Germany that helps it, and otherwise. But this still looks good. I think this actually could be. It's not super liquid in options. You could try, but this doesn't look too bad actually. If you're looking for a diversifier to get long Germany, it's not killing it lately, but this was like it could. I don't want to say rep. It looks like you can get to 31.30 fairly quickly. All right, you can remember I said that. All right, so best absolute trades of the week: short nat gas, short ARCG, biotechs, long oil. I am not going to be doing a video tomorrow. We'll be driving around. And yeah, so have a wonderful weekend and peace.